found my husband slumped over in a wheelchair, looking like he'd aged 50 years. Instantly in my heart, I was like, oh, he's having a stroke. Your health is everything. You kind of take it for granted, but when all of a sudden, one day later, you don't have your health, you're willing to do whatever it takes. After having my twins, I found myself rushing to the ER. Got that phone call from my husband's work that something was going on. What really is a heart-healthy diet? What is the healthiest heart-healthy diet out there?
A little interruption before we get into today's episode. So I run these shows ad-free. We will never take on sponsors because everything is self-funded through our Fit Vegan coaching program. So if you enjoy this show, the best way to support is obviously to subscribe to the channel. But also, if you know anyone over the age of 50 that is looking to improve their body composition, combat sarcopenia, combat osteoporosis, and simply want to get healthier on a whole food plant-based lifestyle, simply send them our way over at fitvegancoaching.com. We're the best in the world in helping people over 50 transform with over 1,100 transformations from 20 different countries. In addition to that, a percentage of our profit monthly goes towards supporting cancer patients with their treatments, bills, and whatever they may need to support themselves and their family. So you're also supporting additional people outside of the work that we do in the program. That's all I have for you today. Enjoy the episode. All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Maxime Sigouin podcast. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, Allie, the creative force behind the YouTube channel PlantWise. Allie's passion for transforming simple whole food ingredients into irresistible vegan meals has inspired millions to rethink what plant-based cooking can be. From her soulful comfort food twist to her science-backed nutrition insight, Allie brings both heart and expertise to every recipe that she creates. Today, we're diving deep into her journey from falling in love with plants to building an online community and uncovering the practical tips and mindset shift that can help you thrive on a vegan diet, fuse flavor with function, and elevate your health and body composition along the way. So grab your favorite snack, settle in, and let's get started. Allie, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. It's great being here.
Yeah. So for the people that don't know, we got connected reconnected at the vegan cruise. Maybe was it already over a month ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was an incredible time. And obviously we got to spend more time together because we connected, I think, the first time at the PCRM conference last year.
Yep. Last summer. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I'm happy to finally have you on the show. I'm happy we're able to make it work. Yeah, I'd love to dive into your story because I think everyone has a different reason or path as to how they came into veganism. And the fact that you've been able to build a career for yourself in this space means that there's a lot of, a strong why, because most people wouldn't go through the hardship of building a YouTube channel and building a community unless they really loved it. And so let me ask you, what brought you to this world?
I never, ever would have imagined that I would be here talking about veganism and being on a vegan podcast in general, just because just 10 years ago, I remember feeding my daughter chicken nuggets and mac and cheese and just thinking to myself, I thought I'd be a healthier mom than this. I've always have been interested in health and nutrition, but when you have kids, man, everything just goes out the window sometimes through the pregnancy and real life. And I tried to be as healthy as I could, but in general, you're just kind of in survival mode. So I then at the time,
let's say, how many kids do you have?
I was going to say at the time that I'm talking about, that was about when I only had 4, but I ended up having twins after that. So I have 6 kids, and that's thus the survival mode, right? And they all were
full plate.
Within 7.5 years, I had 6 kids. So it was a crazy time. I still look back, I'm like, how did I do that? How did I do that? But the kids, They are my greatest joy. It is the most beautiful. I love them, more than anything. But after having my twins, which are number 5 and number 6, when they were around 8 months old, I found myself rushing to the ER, having no idea what to expect. I just had got that phone call from my husband's work that something was going on. They weren't sure. My husband's vision was kind of messed up. They didn't know what was going on. So they sent him to the ER. And so I ran to meet him there and found my husband slumped over in a wheelchair, looking like he'd aged 50 years. And instantly in my heart, I was like, oh, he's having a stroke. I could tell, in my heart, that's what it was saying, if he's having a stroke. His face was slightly lower on one side and his I was totally in like going in a weird direction. And just how he was slumping, there was something about it. But what I knew in my heart took doctors hours and hours and hours to run tests to find out that that was true, that he was having a stroke at the time. And it had lodged, the blood clot had lodged in the kind of fifth cranial nerve area where it was making his vision go double and it was making his eye kind of slanted. But then the blood clot actually finally left and his eye went back to normal, but his vision did not return to normal. In fact, it took months and months and months for it to go back to normal. And you know, like your health is everything. It's like you kind of take it for granted, but when all of a sudden one day later you don't have your health, you're willing to do whatever it takes to be in a better spot. And at the time, we were following the typical macro-based plan. I had just had my twins. I had gained a bunch of weight, for the twin pregnancy, and my husband had gained the twin baby weight. So we were trying to lose weight. We were eating, the typical animal protein, higher protein diet. And so it was working. We had been losing weight, but that was also the diet that we were on when he had his stroke. And so I was willing to go deeper into, what else can we do? What is health really? If this is like what our society views as the healthiest diet, and this is the diet he had a stroke, what really is health? And how can I get my husband's vision back? And what's your body and your brain? And really I kept going back to eating more plants. It's eating more plants, that your arteries and your brain are so sensitive to oxidative damage in general. And when you're consuming a diet higher in antioxidants, then that's the best thing you can do to help your brain. And so we just kind of accidentally ended up eating more plant-based through that process.
If you don't mind me asking, how old was your husband when that happened?
Oh yeah, that's a huge part of it. He was only 37 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy. And, I can imagine from the man's perspective, he's like, man, I got to provide for like 6 kids and a wife. And he's probably stressed and working his butt off, plus a diet and probably lack of sleep as well from having 6 kids at the time. Like it compounded to him being in that position.
Oh, no kidding. No kidding. I mean, there's no question. We live in Washington, D.C. My husband's an attorney. I mean, there was definitely stress with 6 kids, including twin babies. But then add on top of that, the fact that he couldn't drive, he couldn't work. He tried to work, but it was really difficult for him to focus. And so, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, what can I control? There's not a lot that I can control right now, but what I can control is the type of food we're making. And we sat down with a dietitian at the time in the hospital, and they said, okay, we ran all the tests and we found out your husband does not have a hole in his heart. So that's not the cause of the stroke. And there's no genetic history. There's no heart arrhythmia. There really was no explanation. And they said, because he's had one stroke, he's actually likely to have another stroke in the future. So you really do need to take following a heart healthy diet more seriously. And what is a heart healthy diet? Well, it includes avoiding trans fat, saturated fat, cholesterol, eating more fiber, avoiding alcohol. And we already don't drink alcohol. So I thought, okay, well, I thought we were following a healthy diet. I thought that's what we we're doing, but it's such a foreign language. You're in the hospital, you're like, what the heck? It's trans fat and saturated fat and cholesterol. Wait, I thought we could eat eggs now. I'm so confused. So it took a lot. It's almost, well, I did go back to school and become a nutritionist because I wanted to make this as simple and easy as possible for people, because for me, I felt like I needed to go back to school to truly understand what a heart healthy diet actually is and to look past just what the influencers are saying, like what really is a heart healthy diet? What is the healthiest heart healthy diet out there?
What was the hint that made you want to focus on eating more plants?
A big part for me.
Like, why put the focus on that versus like, keto or carnivore or those things?
Right. Because if you lose weight in any way, it's going to be better for your heart.
Yeah.
And honestly, and I can't tell my story without bringing this up, because for me personally, this is a huge part of my story. And, as you can imagine, I'm a mom of 6 kids. People who have that many children, they're usually Catholic or Mormon. Like there usually is a religious component as to having that many children. And for us, I'm a member of the LDS Church. And so I I prayed. Like, this is what I always do. This is what, whenever anyone goes through anyone hard, it's kind of where you automatically turn to. And I prayed. I went to our temple, and it just came very clearly to me to follow what we call, it's called the word of wisdom. I mentioned earlier I don't drink alcohol, and that's because in our faith there's this template for, it's called the word of wisdom. I think there's two reasons why members of our faith follow it. Number one, it does help us be healthier, but number two, it is to kind of set us apart from the rest of the world. And one of the aspects of the word of wisdom is that the people kind of ignore it, what it says to eat meat sparingly. And it was reminded to me when I'm praying and I'm thinking about what is it that I can do to help my family. The thought came, okay, follow the word of wisdom completely, not just the parts that everyone's following, not drinking coffee or alcohol, but to actually eat less animal products. And so, and it talks a lot about eating the herbs and the plants of this earth and how they're good for you. And so, when we think of just the things that we shouldn't do too much and don't think of the things that we need to be adding in. And so that was a huge reason why I turned towards plant-based eating. It was a part of my faith journey. In fact, it's why I named my company PlantWise. Like, we all have our why, and my deeper why really is a spiritual why. And I think many vegans can kind of relate to that, because your deeper why is the love for animals, the love for this earth. That's really why you're here. And for me, it was that spiritual reason.
Yeah. And I think in a lot of spiritual books, they will talk about eating and, less meat. And, I'm Christian, and what you said of like, people will pick and choose. It is very true. They'll be like, I'll just grab these elements, but I don't really want to do these ones, so I won't really focus on them. But the majority of them are saying to eat meat sparingly, basically. When you were sharing your story with your husband, I was just trying to think about, like, when I went through my moments of hardship with cancer, like the things that went through my head, like what went through your head with 6 kids at the time, your husband just, having a stroke. Like, what was that moment like for you to be like, damn, like, we need to change something, or how am I going to navigate this? Like, because I don't think people understand, like, we have a lot of people listening that they are vegan, but their partner isn't, and are looking for ways to kind of help them transition and eat more plant-based. But they're not putting as much effort into it as they could until one of those moments happen. And then they're like, oh, I really need to do something. So if you're comfortable with it, do you mind kind of sharing what went through your head at that time and being like, no, like, we're going to change something regardless of what anyone else says?
Right. I think in order to understand that, we have to go back even more time. And that was back in 2012 when I had another terrible day. I would say this one was actually worse than the phone call I got about my husband. And that was when I got the phone call from my mom. I was sitting there watching a show. She called once and I ignored it because I was in the middle of the show and I didn't want to answer or talk to my mom. But she called again, and then she called again. And I was like, okay, maybe I should answer this call. And she immediately said, Allie, your dad is dead. I was like, wait, what? What are you saying, Mom? And she said, we don't know what happened. We think it was a heart attack, but he's gone. And I was like, there has to be something you could do. There's no way, and she's like, I have to call other people. And then she hung up the phone, and I immediately got on my knees and just pleaded with God, like, please, please, can you bring my dad back? Is there a way that this is just, that the paramedics can bring him back, that he can change his diet, that, something can happen. He'd never had a heart attack before. There was no warning heart attack. There was no reason why, one day he was alive, one day he was gone, nothing. A lot of people get these warning heart attacks. We hear about it all the time, but we didn't. Yeah. And he was overweight, no question. He had a bigger belly, which we all know is reason enough for those to be at a higher risk of a heart attack. And sometimes we get that warning and other times we don't. And because I didn't with my dad, because my prayer of asking him to come back, to have a second chance, did not get answered, when it did happen to my husband, when my husband did have his stroke, I was willing to do whatever it took. I saw, and it's generations. I know that my grandmother's husband passed away early because he smoked and he drank and he had heart issues. My dad passed away early, and not because he smoked and drank, but he he did not eat meat sparingly. He ate plenty of animal products. And
Yeah.
a lot of people online will say, well, heart attacks are because of sugar. And I'm like, then talk to my dad. He was not a big sugar eater. He just overconsumed on more animal products, on processed meats in particular. And I was not willing to fall in line with that generation. I wanted to break the chain. And I knew that while I can't control what my husband eats, I can control what I'm making for dinner, and I can do the best I can to make it delicious and healthy. And I'm not going to force on him that he needs to be vegan. I think that's really scary for a lot of people to take on the name vegan. I mean, it's especially when you're not vegan before. When yesterday you were making chicken nuggets for your kids, and now it's like, oh, I can't take on that name.
Plant-based is an easier transition.
100%. 100%. So that's what I lean towards. I'm like, okay, I can be more plant-based. I don't have to be perfect at this. If we go home to visit family and someone else is feeding, my family that, or if my husband's on a work trip and he chooses something else, I'm not going to stress about it, because 90% of what he's eating is in my home and it's what I'm cooking. And so that's where I dove deep. And that's why I even started my YouTube channel, because I want to show people that it can be just as easy. You were making meatloaf before, you can make meatloaf now and it can still be as good. You can make all of these foods. And sometimes, honestly, making like the American version, like a vegan lasagna, it's going to taste a little different. Sometimes it's better just to lean towards, things like Thai food and Indian food that naturally do taste so good, that are in their vegan form. So it's an interesting journey, but that's what went through my head, is that I don't want to be like my mom or my grandma. I lost my dad. I'm not losing my husband.
Yeah. So it was a blessing to basically, you got that second chance with him, and to just be able to kind of do things differently at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. That is a strong why as to why to do this. So the next question I was going to go in, it was like, how did PlantWise kind of come about? But from the sounds of it, it was like you were trying to make recipes that would be good for your family, trying to make it taste good. And you're like, was it just like, well, let's put this online, other people would benefit from it? Or what was the thought process behind that?
It all goes back. I was reading Fiber Fueled. I love fiber. I was in my stage of diving deep into every single book about plant-based nutrition. I read, from How Not to Die, Eat to Live, Mastering Diabetes, The Starch Solution. I mean, you name it, all of it. And this was Fiber Fueled had just come out. I started following Dr. B, and he posted on his Instagram for a chance for someone to win an eCornell plant-based nutrition course. And I applied. I wrote down my story, and he chose me. He chose me to be the winner. And this was at the time of 2020. And now I'm also a Pilates instructor. I've been teaching Pilates for almost 20 years. And I was teaching a ton of classes, but because of 2020, everything just dropped away. I had 0 classes.
Yeah.
I went from a full schedule to nothing. And it came at the perfect time. And I was so grateful that then, instead of doing that, I did this eCornell plant-based nutrition course and fell in love with it. I'm sitting here learning deeper about the science, and was like, give me a soapbox. I want to shout this on the rooftops. I need to tell everyone the benefits of eating meat sparingly, and especially members of my faith, because we have this direction in our word of wisdom. We just don't follow it. And so I started an Instagram account, and I was posting on it, and I started a coaching program, and I was helping people. But I realized that a lot of people just need recipes. And it's funny, because again, when I first started my business, I would never have thought that I would be a YouTuber showing you recipes, because I'm not a cook. I don't like to cook. This is not something that I'm passionate about. I would not have even been considered a good cook, before going plant-based. But there's something beautiful about the creative process of trying to find ways to make it delicious, and getting creative in the kitchen, that it just sparks a different part of my brain that I love, instead of it just being, okay, make, your typical American, chicken cordon bleu. That does not excite me. But make chicken cordon bleu plant-based with beans, I don't know, that's exciting. I've never done that, so I don't know if that's even possible. But in general, I really realized that in order for me to reach more people, to teach my message, I have to do it through food, because that's people's biggest hang up. They can learn about eating plant-based, they can hear about it, but if they don't have good recipes to follow, they're going to get stuck and they're not actually going to do it. And so my reason for starting my PlantWise YouTube channel is because I realized that that is key for a lot of people's success. And I wanted to be able to help people in a way that was free, that it's like, let me put my information out there and then I can help you, even if I never meet you, even if you never join my coaching program, that I can give you, some of my favorite recipes and other people will fall in love. Because that's really the way to grow veganism, is by just having delicious, healthy foods.
Yeah. What was that first video like that you recorded? Do you remember?
Oh yeah.
Because that first video versus like the last one you did, like it's such a different energy. What was that first video like?
Oh my gosh, I know. You can go back and watch it. I was so proud of myself. I think anytime you do anything, you have to be willing to be bad at it before you're good at it. And you have to know that the benefit of being bad at it at first.
Absolutely.
Right. And the benefit is, whenever you start something, no one's watching. So it doesn't matter. Like, it just doesn't matter. And I was really blessed that when I decided to do a YouTube channel, I had two friends. One friend who had started an incredibly successful YouTube channel that was not plant-based at all, but she walked me through the process. And I'm a big fan of Daryl Eves. For anyone who wants to start YouTube, I love Daryl Eves and the book, The YouTube Formula. And so I went through the process of, okay, this is what you do. And I knew that, in the foreword of that book, Mr. Beast writes the foreword and he's like, you're going to be terrible. But guess what? I was terrible. Like, no one even watched me. So it's totally fine. And it is, as you keep going, as you get better. And my editor, we were friends, and he had even come up to me that same week and was like, hey, do you have any videos that I can edit? I'm like, that's funny, because I just decided to start a YouTube channel. So it really was serendipitous how it started. And we have both improved over time. And I remember, I'll never forget watching my first YouTube video when it went live and publishing, like no one's out there, no one's watching, but I was so proud of myself. I was so proud of myself for doing something hard, for putting myself out there.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to be embarrassed yet because no one was watching, but I just was like, this was hard. And I'm so dang proud. Like, I was so proud in that moment.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was the opposite. I was nervous because I was like, oh man, people are going to see this video. That's crazy. But if you do it right, 5-10 years down the road, thousands of people will see your first video and be like, oh, look at how much you've grown. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like that before photo when you do a transformation. It's like, look at how terrible the quality of the image and the audio was, and how I spoke and how I showed up on camera. So I love that first video. To me, is like the coolest, because you're like, that's where you started from.
Yeah.
You mentioned you get excited about the process of creating new recipes, which I'm happy you do, because Ivy and I benefit from people like you and Carly that will do nice recipes and we'll be like, hey, let's just try this recipe. That way we don't have to create one, because I'm not as creative in the kitchen. So what is your process to come up with a recipe? Do you kind of grab a traditional American dish or a dish that is not vegan, and then you're like, all right, this is going to be my video this week, I'm going to find a way to make that vegan? Do you get inspiration from other chefs, vegan chefs out there? Like, what does that look like?
100%. My goal for my channel is to be the typical American mom raising their family, making the typical American meals, but just making them plant-based. And so while it's interesting, because personally, I actually eat a little bit more protein than a lot of my recipes. So sometimes I'll try to figure out, okay, well, how can I add a little bit more protein into it? But in general, I'm just trying to make recipes that I could bring to, for example, the last video I made that isn't live yet, but it will be, is dump and go breakfast casseroles. Because I just went to a church event where we all brought breakfast, it's like Easter time, right? And we had this Easter egg hunt, and everyone was supposed to bring like a breakfast food. And guess what everyone brings? Egg sausage casseroles. They're delicious. Yeah. That's what I used to make. That's what I used to bring. So I'm thinking, okay, what can I do instead? what can we make that's just as delicious, that's savory, and how can I, bring in some protein? And tofu has more protein than eggs, and so how can
Yeah.
I maybe some potatoes and veggies and I talked to ChatGPT. I'm like, okay, ChatGPT, we got to make this really yummy. I wanted to have some tofu, some eggs, some veggies, and a lot of flavor. And so ChatGPT and I come up with a lot, and then I'll test it out and I'll bring it to the next event. And I came up with my savory breakfast casserole that way. And it was hilarious because I shared it. And as I came, I was like, guys, I haven't tasted this yet. This is an experiment. All my friends in my area know, like, if I show up at the event, I may have a delicious item or it may be terrible because I'm experimenting. But I brought it to another, morning event, and someone tried it and afterwards asked me what was in it. I was like, oh, I used tofu instead of eggs, and I blended it in my blender so no one can tell that there's tofu in it. And I used Lipton onion soup to bring in a lot of the flavor. Anyway, she went home and Googled it. She was like, she loved it so much, and she's not even plant-based. And then I didn't see her until a couple of days later, and she was like, where did you get that recipe from? I have scoured the internet. It is not there. I was like, I know, because I made it up. But I make these things up usually with ChatGPT and with just having experience of, okay, what can you do? There's so much you can do with tofu. It's amazing to me. You can blend it into a sauce. It can be a tofu Alfredo. It can be a pudding when you add chocolate with it. It can be, a substitute for eggs in a casserole dish. Like, there's so many things, but you really do have to add in more flavor. And so the thing that I probably get the most hate about from typical whole food plant-based eaters is that I do use salt in my recipes. Not a lot, but I do use salt because I'm all about the flavor, and I'll use the light salt that's like half potassium chloride to keep the salt content down. But I just really want people who maybe were just diagnosed with breast cancer. Like, there's so many women that I've worked with. This is similar circumstance. They're like, I can't go plant-based. Like, I can't, this food is gross. Like, I don't want to do it. I'm like, no, I want to show you that it can be easy. It can be delicious. You can go to your next event and you can bring this delicious quinoa double chocolate breakfast casserole that I just came up with, and everyone will love it still. It just is a different skill set. But with any skill set, with practice over time, you can really do incredibly well.
Yeah. Well, I got a few things to say to all of this. So one, by the time this podcast comes out, the recipe video will be out for the people listening, so you can go and check it out. Probably a few more recipe videos will be out because I do record like months ahead. So there's going to be a lot more recipes for people to check out, and I'll put the link in the description for people to go check out your YouTube channel.
Perfect.
Because you do have awesome recipes on there. The other element that you mentioned about the salt, I add a ton of salt to my food, right? So I think there needs to be a balance of some sort to meet people where they're at. So yes, there's the whole food plant-based SOS free movement, which again, beautiful, do that if that's what aligns with you and that's what you want to do. I train 20 hours a week. I sweat so much and I get pounding headaches and I get dizzy if I don't add sodium to my food. So depending on the level of training that you do, like, adding some sodium and electrolytes is like highly beneficial. There's salt in this water right now because I just finished training. So, and the same thing you said for breast cancer, like, would it be better if it was like 100% clean what they were going to eat? Yes. But if they're not going to eat it because they don't like the flavor of it, I'd rather them eat whole food plant-based with some salt than eat meat because they don't like the taste of the whole food plant-based dish without salt. You know what I mean? Like, eating whole food plant-based with salt will be so much better for them than eating a processed food or a meat or any of the food that they serve at the hospital. It's all nasty. So it's about, people forget that part. It's like, you got to meet people where they're at. I understand the different levels of belief as you enter veganism and plant-based eating and whole food plant-based eating. But man, we're trying to get more people to eat this way. And so sometimes throwing some salt into it, if that's the thing that's going to make them eat, some veggies and eat plant-based, like, go for it. There's nothing wrong with it.
Exactly. And I think also knowing what your goals are. For example, you train a lot, right? So you're going to need more protein than a lot of the women who are just switching over. And so we'll use the breast cancer analogy. Like, she's not even working out. She's not even walking. Versus me, who I am lifting. I'm lifting, 6 times a week. I need more protein. So I will make, for example, I made a really delicious lemon poppy seed oatmeal, steel cut oatmeal casserole. And it is so good. But if I ate it, I ate leftovers this morning and I ate it with a higher protein yogurt. And so just so you know, you can kind of tweak things depending on your goals. You can still follow these recipes, but you can add more protein or take it away. It's not that hard to still eat delicious in a delicious way. You just have to be mindful if you're wanting to add in more protein or not.
Yeah, that was actually one of the points I was going to ask. So you mentioned you were blending your tofu for your casserole. Like, are you blending it into like small chunks or until it's smooth and then you're cooking it in the pan? How are you preparing
smooth and I'm cooking it. Yeah. It's kind of like a sauce.
So does it do like an egg?
Yeah, kind of like an egg. Exactly like what I would do with an egg. Mm-hmm.
So like basically you're making like a just egg product, but just by blending the tofu basically.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And it's not going to look like...
I never tried that.
I know. It's fun. It's really fun to experiment. Like, you got to add the flavor in, but it's not going to look amazing. Sometimes my son...
Well, it's all mush anyways.
Right. It's a casserole. My son, actually, the big joke is that he always says, he's like, Mom, I know that if you make a meal and it looks terrible, it's going to taste good. Because sometimes
people have to get over the visual.
Yeah. Sometimes the visual is not the exact same visual, but you can add in colors, you can add in tomatoes, you can add in, parsley or whatever to make it look more beautiful. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun to experiment. And I think it's funny that in just the general American culture, think of everything that we put cheese or cream or milk into. Like, how many recipes have cream?
Pretty much everything.
Oh my gosh. Like, everything. And so for me, using tofu or sometimes cashews, why are we not using other things like tofu in place of cream or in place of cheese or eggs, because we used to be using so many other milk products anyway.
Yeah, and you're right. It is an easy way to also add more protein to your dish if you're using it as some of those substitutes in the recipes.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What are 3 ingredients that kind of have been a game changer for you in making some of your recipes that you tend to use on a continuous basis?
I could not survive without Better Than Bouillon veggie paste. I'm not gonna lie. You have to have a good veggie. You have to have a good veggie broth that's the center of everything.
Yeah.
And I've even dived deeper into like their no beef paste, which is really good, or their chickenless paste that tastes like chicken broth used to taste. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so nice to have this flavor again because I've missed it. So that is at the center of, I can't even tell you how many recipes, so many recipes. So you need a good veggie broth. So that's big. And then I would say, obviously, I'm currently using tofu more, but in the beginning it was beans. It was beans. I feel like beans are the perfect gateway into plant-based eating. And I know, yes, over time, when you're training more, when you're lifting more, you need more protein. But at the beginning, when all you're looking is to heal, which is what we were doing, it was so much easier to make the recipes I used to make with chicken, and I just do chickpeas instead. So if it was like a really good go-to that I made all the time was cashew chicken, and then I just swapped it. It was simple swap. So instead of chicken, I made chickpeas, and it was just as good. Luckily, my family likes beans, so that's huge. We love black beans. Like, black beans, literally, one of my twins will be like, Mom, here's a can of beans. Can you open it? And he will just eat black beans in a bowl by itself. Like, he loves beans so much.
That sounds like Cyrus when we were having dinner with him at the cruise. He just had cans of black beans and chickpeas in his backpack.
Oh my gosh. They brought beans on the cruise. Like, who brings food on a cruise, especially if it's a vegan
He
cruise?
had a lot of cans. He had a ton of cans in his room.
Oh man, they kill me. It's so funny, which is like great. I mean, that's how he gets a lot of his protein. So
Yeah. I was gonna say Cyrus is really jacked. I was very surprised. So for protein, we had multiple conversations about protein. I think at PCRM and on the cruise.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how has your viewpoint on protein changed, and how has that made a difference for you as you've kind of like played around with your recipes?
Yeah. In fact, we first met at the PCRM conference, and I was at a point where I had been working with women in my program, and I'm helping them lose weight, and they're losing weight, and we're following kind of just the typical plant-based diet. And I'm seeing their bodies, and I'm like, and sometimes they would just reach a point where they couldn't get further. Like, they would kind of plateau. And we had this conversation about protein that really changed me, honestly. It really did. And it made me realize that, and then going to the conference and listening to things, and I realized that while many plant-based eaters don't worry about protein, because when you're consuming enough calories, you're eating enough protein, if you're not trying to like build muscle, right? But most people who are trying to lose weight on a plant-based diet are intentionally not eating enough calories, and therefore are not getting enough protein. Because if you're not eating enough calories, you're not getting enough protein. And I'm seeing that and I'm like, oh my gosh, we need to focus more. And so all I did, because again, look, you work with people who are they're fit vegans, right? They are really trying to build muscle and be more fit. I'm just working with ladies who were just diagnosed with other health issues. Since my husband had a big major health event, I tend to attract other people who have had health events. And so we're just getting them to, okay, let's just eat more plant-based, but I'm realizing that they need to be eating adequate protein. And adequate protein is, I know Cyrus talks about it's like 0.6 grams per pound of body weight. And I would say, for most women, if you're looking for lean body mass, that's going to be, for a woman who's 5'5", that's 120 pounds. So you're looking at like anywhere between, a little bit more than 60 grams of protein a day, right? So I'm just like, let's just get to that number. We're just going to do baby steps. Like you said, meet people where they're at. And it was amazing the difference in my program when I just started having people eat just adequate protein. We're not even focusing on lifting or anything like that yet. And they're like, oh my gosh, now all of a sudden I'm losing weight. I feel more satiated. I don't have as many cravings. Like it was a game changer. And then now that they're at that point, it's like, okay, now let's get you to the point where you're actually lifting. We know that women who are going through perimenopause or menopause, it's so important for you to do strength training because of the loss of estrogen, you're losing some of your muscle mass. And so once we can add that element to actually strength training to it, then okay, let's get you to take the next step a little bit higher protein. But I feel like just getting to the adequate part can be a game changer. And it's simple. It really just requires some mental work. But, every time you're looking down at your meal, you're like, okay, well, what's my protein source? And if it's beans, is it at least 20-25 grams of protein, in this? For Cyrus, who's eating a whole can of beans, he's there. He's got it. But for other women, they're just eating a little bit. And it's like, no, you need to be consuming more protein. So can you add TVP to this? Can you add soy curls? Can you add, even a lot of them aren't quite ready to experiment with like seitan yet, but they will consume tofu. They will consume, some other just edamame, things like that.
Yeah, no, it makes the world of a difference in a transformation. And it's, again, I think it's sad because the whole food plant-based movement, I know, is like, let's get people to eat more plant-based. And I think they're trying to reduce the amount of friction and stress that people experience by transitioning. So they're like, hey, let's just not worry about all these other things. Just eat whole food plant-based, which I think is a beautiful mission. Mm-hmm. But then they've been doing that for so long that now thousands and potentially millions of people have gone through that. And they're like, well, I'm stuck now.
Yep.
I'm eating whole food plant-based. My body's kind of soft and pudgy. Like I'm not as strong as I want to. Like there's something missing. And that's why we focus on like the strength training and a little bit more protein, because it brings people to like that next level. So it optimizes what they've been doing. But I wish they would talk about that more, which I haven't said this publicly, but are you going to be at NHA this year?
Yeah, I hope to. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they just invited me to speak. So I'm going to be there and I'm going to be speaking. And so I'm going to be talking about protein and strength training, which no one really talks about, because last year no one talked about that at the conference. So it will be interesting to see with all the great doctors that are there and see who's going to back me up. But yeah, it makes such a world of a difference. What have you seen for yourself in increasing your protein and in your strength training transformation?
Oh, and I think it goes back to like when my husband had a stroke, I didn't have the mental space to even think about protein, and we didn't care about protein. It was like, let's get his vision back. And it came back after 6 months, 5-6 months. And so that's all that, that's all that we
or
cared
majority?
about. What?
Of eating plant-based or majority plant-based? That's when he came back?
Yeah. Yep. His vision came back after eating plant-based for about 5 months, and he lost weight, and his cholesterol went down, and his triglycerides went down. You know, all of these things, all these important health numbers that to us at the time mattered more than protein intake. And so I think there's a level 1 and then there's level 2. And especially if you've gone through a health event, like let's just work with you on level 1. Let's get you to where you know, are healing, you're in a good spot. And then once you reach that point, so my husband, he lost all that weight and now he's like, okay, now let's think about the muscle, because he couldn't even work out. He couldn't even see. You know what I mean? Like when you're not in a good spot health wise, that's what you need to focus on, healing first. And then after that, so we're eating plant-based. We've been doing it for a while, and now it's like, okay, let's kind of make some tweaks. And that's when I started lifting more. I hired a personal trainer, and I have been a group fitness instructor for almost 20 years. Okay. So I have been teaching Pilates, which I think Pilates is the gateway drug for strength training. I think for a lot of people, it's the perfect place to start. If you're not even comfortable strength training yet, like, okay, let's do Pilates. Let's get you just so that you are then comfortable to make the next step. You know, I think Pilates is like a great place to start. But again, after teaching Pilates, after teaching group fitness classes, spin classes, all of that, I look in the mirror and I'm like, look, I'm thin, I'm fit, but I'm not toned. And I know if I really want to change my body, like there's nothing that will change it. There's nothing that's going to add the lines, you know, for my muscles than actually strength training. And so then I hired a personal trainer and I started lifting weights, and then you're like, okay, I want to do this without thinking about protein. Like that's how I was like, I'm going to be so fit and so toned, and I'm going to do this without even thinking about protein. I'm going to be the one person. Well, guess what? I was doing the exercises right, progressive overload, all of that. And here's another thing too. I think for women who are already thin, that sometimes we're used to dieting so much. Like we have been trying to health. We've been dieting for so long that I do think that even me talking about helping these women lose weight, I'm thinking, okay, I don't want to overeat. I'm like, wait, I am working out so hard. I actually need to start eating more and eating more protein to see gains. And when I did that one thing, when I stopped intermittent fasting, when I stopped, you know, counting and making sure I wasn't eating too many calories, and I started eating more and fueling more, all of a sudden I'm lifting heavier. I'm seeing huge differences in strength. And I think sometimes for us women, let's stop trying to be the thinnest version of ourselves. Let's stop trying to get to the pre-baby weight, because I'm still, you know, 10 pounds off of what I weighed before I had any kids. And in my mind, I'm like, I need to lose 10 more pounds. I need to lose 10 more pounds. But I'm also 42 and I'm not 22. And I'm with my hormones in this stage of life, I need to be gaining muscle because naturally I'm losing muscle over time. So my goal should not be the thinnest version, be my pre-baby weight. My goal needs to be, let me be the strongest version of myself. Let me be the strongest version of Allie that I've ever been my whole life. And right now I can honestly say that I am. I still want to be even stronger, but that's just so much more powerful that I can lift up my 6-year-old twins. You know, it's like, Mom, I don't want to walk anymore. Okay, let me lift them and carry them around Disney World all day long. And my body
one on each shoulder.
It's like, whoa. You know, and when I'm not concerned about, okay, because at first I started because I wanted to be more toned, right? Let's be honest. It was selfish. But now it's like, no, I'm doing this so that I can live longer, because while the number 1 cause of death is heart disease, right? The number 2 cause of death is cancer. And I know that last I checked, COVID was number 3, but number 3 in general is usually accidents. And within the accidents category, the number 1 cause of death within accidents is falling. And that can be prevented by having enough muscle. And I think that's, we us plant-based people kind of overlook that, but all of the other non-plant-based people love to talk about that, sarcopenia and all these things. But I think if we just can combine the two worlds, like the benefits of eating plant-based and the benefits of strength training and eating enough protein, it can be life-changing, that you really can be the healthiest version and live a long, healthy life, because there's so much power in having more muscle on your body.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a big difference between wanting to be the skinniest and the lightest versus being the strongest and the fittest version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
because that could mean being 10 pounds over what you consider to be skinny, but you have more muscle and you're a lot stronger and you're more in a space of, prevention
Right.
for some of those issues that come as you get older. Now, when you mentioned at first it was to kind of be toned, like we've noticed that throughout the years. We used to coach like 25 to like 40 at first, and now we're 50 to 86 that we work with. Like 25 to 40 ish. It's very like aesthetic. It's like I want to look and kind of like have a certain look. And then once you kind of get to 45, 50 plus, it's like, I don't want my joints to hurt. I want to be stronger. I want more energy. Like the first goal changes. Aesthetic is still a part of the conversation, but it's like second or third on the list. So yeah, that like 40s is where the shift happens of like, yeah, I just want to feel good. And then aesthetic will be the second thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think when I was seeking to be my pre-baby weight, I forgot that I have been a group fitness instructor for almost 20 years. I do have abs now, and I didn't anymore. I do have more of a more of a bum than I used to, and all of that. As I'm trying to seek this, I'm a different person, and I think we all are different people. And instead of seeking our past version, let's seek for a better future version.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into helping people become that best version of themselves in the future. I love to go over common kind of pitfalls that beginners go through as they kind of enter this world, because I think a lot of the work that you're doing is great to help people get into that space and start to eat this way without having, again, necessary tons of restriction. Like you said, adding a little bit of salt, kind of making the recipes really simple to help them ease into it. So what are common pitfalls that you see people make when they transition to eating? We'll just use the word plant-based, because vegan is a pretty loaded word. Fit vegan just sounds so good. I wish fit plant-based would be as nice of a brand, but it doesn't work. So I'm stuck with it. But yeah, how do you get people to like, what are the common pitfalls when people transition to eating plant-based when it comes to, the kitchen or the transition?
I think it's very similar to the pitfalls of people when they start working out. It's like they work out, and then they're sore and they don't want to do it again. And they try a recipe and their family didn't eat it and they just want to give up. It's the not being persistent. Just the persistence that if you want to be successful in anything, I think that's like a law. Even, and I'm sure you've seen this with business. It's like the people who last the longest win. Like they really do. And
that's all you got to do.
Yeah, you really do. You have to be persistent. And so if like the first time I made tofu, guys, I literally had no idea how to make it. I bought a store-bought like tiki masala sauce, and I cut up the tofu, did not like press it at all. And I just kind of cut it up and put it in the sauce and mix it around. It kind of like crumbled around, and my friend tasted it and immediately spit it out of her mouth and into the garbage. She's like, that was disgusting. And if I would have stopped there, I never would have realized or created so many other things. And so being willing to try new things, try new tastes, letting your taste buds have time to adjust. One of my favorite stories, it was on the Exam Room podcast of a woman that she shared where she first went plant-based. She made a soup, and it was disgusting to her. She's like, I spent hours on it though. I like cut up all these veggies, cut up everything. It was so gross, but I didn't want to throw it away. So I put it in my freezer. Okay. 6 months later, she pulls it out of her freezer. She's like, oh yeah, I remember this. She tries it and she loved it. Like same person, but just her taste buds had changed, that now she could enjoy that. Yeah. So I think just being persistent, recognizing that we change, we all change, people change. I like things that now that I didn't like before. And the beauty of plant-based eating too is that there's so much variety of flavors. It's like what we were eating before. It was just, you had your protein, whether it was chicken or turkey, because we didn't eat a lot of red meat. And then it was a veggie and a carb. So it's like a potato, just pretty basic. But now I'll make like a Buddha bowl, and it has a huge mix of flavors and sauces. And I love to go to a restaurant, Kava, and I'm like, it's like a flavor bomb in your mouth, just all of the different flavors that you have. So don't try to compare. I think that's another pitfall, is you're trying to replace what you used to eat and just make a vegan version of it and expect it to be as good. And it's going to be different.
The same.
Yep.
Yes, it's definitely going to be the same. It's not going to, but down the road, as your taste bud change, you will find that it tastes great or pretty darn close, but not at the beginning.
Yeah, not at the beginning. And vegan cheese, just give up on vegan cheese. Just kidding. I have yet to find a vegan cheese that I'm like, this is it. This is the one. No, I just don't even bother with that.
In Vancouver, there's a vegan pizza place called Virtuous Pie. Maybe some Canadians listening to this. They make their own vegan cheese. It's not like available for you to buy, but it's pretty darn good. It's probably the best one I think I've ever come close to. Or there's a vegan pizza house in Vancouver. Like Vancouver has some good vegan spots, but those are the best ones. And they're not like you can't buy them at the store to make them yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, the ones you buy at the store they look like melted pieces of plastic. You know, when you cook with them, they don't melt. They just like curl up and get hot. That's pretty much all that happens.
I know it doesn't. Sometimes I'll add it just for looks, literally just for looks. I'll like sprinkle it on top so my vegan lasagna kind of looks like lasagna, but it's not going to have the same taste, which is great. Like we don't get addicted to it, so that's good.
But yeah, honestly, I just gave up. I just put nutritional yeast on top of lasagna, and it kind of looks the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think that people overcomplexify the process of preparing vegan food because they're trying to hit every single little vitamin and mineral inside of one meal, and they think it seems like a science experiment for them to be able to hit everything in one meal when they start?
Oh yeah. Oh no, 100%. And you know, it's interesting too. It reminds me that a lot of sometimes comments on Instagram, you know, when your Instagram post does really well, that you get all the haters. I like get excited. I'm like, yes, I got the haters. It means my Instagram post did really well. But on Instagram, some people will say, well, you have to supplement your whole life in order to like eat a complete diet. And I think this is one thing that I wish more people would know. If you're willing to just dabble a little bit, like before you go all in, I think once you learn more about eating plant-based, then you tend to turn more towards this lifestyle. But like, just, okay, for right now, maybe you can keep your eggs, keep your Greek yogurt, but then do everything else, you know, and then slowly over time, you can choose to kind of pick things off or keep what you love. But then let's try at least one plant-based meal a week, you know, 2 plant-based meal a week. The biggest pitfall that I see happening over and over again is that people are either all in or they're all out. And that is the number one way to self-sabotage is to go 100% in or 100% out. Like, be okay with being in the middle. We live in a world that is like, this is black, this is white. And really, the actual world is full of gray hairs. It's just full of like, well, there's nuance in this. You know, can you get a lot of nutrients from eating eggs still? Yeah, you know, you can. Can you get a lot of nutrients from eating yogurt? Like, can it be good for you still? Yes, it can. Like, we just want to say, no, that's bad and this is good. But be okay with being in the middle, be in a comfortable spot, and then slowly over time, just try out new ways of making things and experiment instead of being like, we're vegan today and not tomorrow. With kids, that's my biggest piece of advice. I never told my kids, guess what, guys? We're not going to buy meat ever again. You know, like they would freak out. And so for me, my middle ground has been like, okay, we still are going to have pizza once a week. My husband and I will have a cheeseless pizza. And you guys, if you want, like, you can order the type of pizza you want. I will not put sausage or pepperoni on it. But like, if it's cheese pizza, then it's cheese pizza, because I don't have to force them to do exactly what I'm doing. We can still make our decisions, you know? And so it gets tricky when you're a mom with 6 kids. You have to be flexible, but I think the flexibility can truly be your strength.
I think putting a label to it is what messes up a lot of people, of being all in or all out, right? It's like, if you say that you're going to start eating more plant-based, then people don't feel comfortable with saying that they're eating more plant-based because they don't want to deal with the comments of other people. They don't want to say flexitarian because then you have to explain yourself. They don't want to say vegan because it's a loaded word. So it's just like, shit, I just eat food. And then if you want to eat more plant-based, eat more plant-based. You don't have to tell anyone about it.
Right.
Because I think like putting a hard label makes people go all in or all out. And there's no, I would say, it's not really a word to be in the gray in the middle, right? Like flexitarian would probably be the best one. But shit, what if you don't put any title? I'm just eating food. right? And then if for you that's having meat 10-20% of the time, the rest is plant-based, great. You don't have to tell anyone about it.
Right.
No one will notice it, to be honest with you,
Right.
especially if you're still eating a little bit of meat. But I think people have a hard time finding the appropriate label, and that's what messes them up of like really doing it, even if they do one plant-based meal a week. You said that we have to supplement for the rest of our life, and we get the replay. Like I just had a big reaction because I'd rather supplement for the rest of my life than be on medications for my heart, for cholesterol, for blood pressure. Absolutely. Supplements are cheaper and they don't make you feel like shit. And it means that you're in a healthier position versus taking pills because you're sick. Absolutely. I'd rather take supplements for the rest of my life than go on those meds.
That's so true. That's so true. And plus, a lot of the people on the standard American diet, they're lower in things like magnesium anyway. They're not eating and lower in fiber, right? They're not eating enough of just plants. And so they're also deficient in different ways than we are. So I think I love that.
They can be deficient in B12. There's a ton of meat eaters that deficient in B12. Some people just can't absorb them as well either, even if they consume meat.
Yeah.
I know a bunch of meat eaters that have to supplement with B12.
And iron too. You see that a lot. You can be a meat eater. When I was pregnant, during most of my pregnancies, I was had anemia, even though I was eating meat too. So yeah, it's super common.
Yeah. So no, for sure. Supplements over medication, 100%.
I love that. Yeah. I love that.
Let's talk about, I know you have a free gift for everyone. You read the whole book, How Not to Die, and you made some cliff notes for it. Do you mind kind of sharing that with people?
Yeah. So when I first went plant-based, I dove deep into the research and really wanted to know it. And so I spent hours just diving through the book, How Not to Die, to kind of pull out his stories. I'm like, his stories make it interesting to read, but like, for what disease, what do we need to focus on? And I started with the stroke, right? The stroke section. Like, okay, what exactly do we need to eat more of? It was like Brazil nuts, oranges, and kind of pulled out specifically potatoes that are really going to help him, especially when we're going through the healing process. And then I expanded because then people had more questions like, well, what about me? I have, I'm worried about Parkinson's. I'm worried about, breast cancer. So then I pulled out every single disease and basically did a list of what he says in How Not to Die, which I know he's actually going to update it this year. He talked about that on the vegan cruise. He's like, I'm going to have a new and revised version I'm coming out with this next year. So I'll have to update it when it comes out. But in general, I have a Cliff Notes version of the book How Not to Die because it's so good, but it's so long. And you may have even read it before and you don't remember what it says. And so it's nice to just be like, okay, what should I be eating if I want to avoid Parkinson's? Oh yeah, peppers. What do I want to be eating if I want to avoid breast cancer? Oh yeah, flax seeds. And it goes through the studies. Is also cited. All the studies are cited. And so again, I spent hours on it. And this is when I first started my business. I literally worked between the hours of like 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. because I was obsessed about it. But I had little babies, I had kids, and I didn't have the means to be able to work. This is a product of those late night working sessions where I just wanted to know and understand the research. And because I spent so much time into it, I'm like, I might as well give it to people because I want other people to have the benefits of it. And so, yeah, well, I'll give you the link so that you can share it with your audience if they also want the Cliff Notes version of How Not to Die.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, for everyone listening, down below in the description, if you're on YouTube or audio, the link will be there. Well, now Dr. Greger is putting you some more work as if he updates it and it's back to 10 to 2 a.m. updating that list.
Oh man. Luckily, I'm at a stage of life where all of my kids are in school now. It's like a new world. Like I'm actually sleeping at night. It's amazing. I go to bed at a decent time. I wake up early because they're all in school and I can work during the day instead of at crazy hours. But that just shows you when you're really passionate about something, you're willing to put in the work, the long hours, because you just want to share this message with the world. And I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing, the Fit Vegan, because it's helping people get to that next step, that next level. And we can't do it alone. Like we are a community oriented people. We just need direction. It's like if you want it with my kids, if they want to be the best soccer player, I'm not going to say go out in the backyard and practice by yourself. I'm going to have them join a soccer team with a good coach who's directing them and teaching them and where they can learn from other people too.
Yeah, that's the only way people that succeed is going by learning from the best. Every time I want to start something new, I just go hire someone that knows how to do it. why do you have to figure it out from scratch?
Exactly. It's
Right.
so true.
Actually, I like to end on this because a lot of people will make excuses as to why they can't eat healthy, why they can't exercise. And now I think of you, right? Your husband's a lawyer, so he's a busy man. You have 6 kids. You're running a business. You're exercising. You said 6 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you make it all work? Because there's some people that have 1 or 2 kids that have a regular job and they have their husband and they still can't find the time to do their workouts and to eat healthy food. So how do you balance it?
I think my secret to success, and anyone, regardless of what you're doing, if you do this, you will see the benefits, and it goes back to faith, and that is having 1 day of complete rest. Like I work out 6 days a week, not 7 days a week. I have 1 day of complete rest. I think the Sabbath was made for man, not necessarily for God. I think we need a day to completely just back off, rest, recover. Like we know the importance of recovering. And then it's like, okay, after that day of rest, you can go hard. I don't work. My husband doesn't work. We spend time with our family. I take a nap, a really long, delicious nap every Sunday. I think just resting is key. And so don't feel like you have to go 100%. You know, if you're struggling, if you have all these excuses, build in your rest, build in your breaks, build in the time where you're not going to try, build in the time where you're going to go, enjoy whatever food, whatever you want with your family. If it's organized and if it's prepared beforehand, then you're going to enjoy it. It's going to be guilt-free. You can release the stress. I think that's so important, is building in that rest just as much as you're building in the work and building in the effort. It's like Friday nights are the nights where I don't cook. Saturday nights are the nights I don't cook. We'll have the leftovers. We'll do that. And so I know that on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I can make meals, right? And also, here's another thing too, when it comes to cooking, have your go-to fast, quick meals. You don't need to look at the recipe, that are super simple, like a tofu scramble, or just, my kids love pasta. I can make pasta.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. I'll
fast too.
Right. I'll boil high protein pasta and I'll be able to make a meal out of it. I just start there and I know all of my kids will eat it. And so having your backup go-to, you can eat the same thing and still be eating a variety of plants. I can just mix up the pasta sauce or mix up the veggie that I'm eating. It doesn't have to be as hard.
Yeah.
I love making, also one of my go-tos is like a almost rotten veggie soup, where I open up my fridge. I'm like, okay, what's about to go rotten? I'm going to make a meal out of this. I'm going to turn it into a soup and put in some cashew cream and some Old Bay seasoning with some veggie broth, but better than bouillon veggie broth. And it's so good. It's so good. There's so many ways, if you're willing to be creative, and you don't have to waste food. You don't have to spend a ton of time. I think asking yourself, how can I make this easy? How can I make this fun? How can I make this delicious? When you tell your brain, I don't know, it just shuts off. I don't know what to make for dinner tonight. Well, yeah, you just shut off your brain by saying, I don't know. But if you ask yourself the question, what could I make that would take maybe just 10 minutes to put together? Then you allow your brain to come up with an answer. Your brain is so, so powerful. And if you just say, I don't have enough time, or I don't do that, start asking yourself, well, how could I make this work? Or is that true? Is it 100% true all the time that I don't have enough time? Or how could I make it work? I have a client that she literally travels every single week. She's on multiple flights, multiple times a week. And how can she eat plant-based? And it's just by asking those questions. How can I make this work? How could I do this? Could I be like Cyrus and pack a whole backpack of beans? What can you do that's within your power, instead of just giving your power away to other people and other constraints by saying, I don't have time, I don't have the energy. It's like, well, what could I do with the limited energy that I have? That's where your strength lies. And that's how you're going to actually see change in your life.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say that you're going to outsource it. You have a cook, you have a maid, you have a cleaner coming in. No, and even coming up with ideas of recipes. I'm a big fan of outsourcing a lot of things. Mm-hmm. So we have cleaners come and we outsource a lot of things in our life. But you can take a photo with ChatGPT of the ingredients. You pull out everything you have from your fridge and ask ChatGPT what recipe you can make with this that takes 10 minutes. And it'll give you ideas of it. it's an underutilized tool, I think,
yeah.
for a lot of people.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it's crazy what you can do. Literally just take a photo of what's in your fridge and then be like, what recipe could I make with this? That's going to take me 10 minutes. And then it'll just give you the instructions and even give you the macros for it too.
And you can ask, well, how can I add more protein? How can I add more protein to this? How can I, add another fruit? What's a good fruit that go, there's so much. I use ChatGPT. It's like my best friend. ChatGPT all day long. I'm like,
oh, me too.
Tell me this. Yeah, it is.
I use it for title videos for YouTube, for description, to help with inspiration, for writing, for organization. Yes, I spend way too much time on it, but it's like an employee for $20 a month, basically, when you get the pro one.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's worth it. It's worth it. And it's the best time. It's the best time to go plant-based for that reason. It's the best time to have a business for that reason. It really is a privilege that we get, and why not use it? Why not utilize it to make your life easier? And going back to the hiring, I'm not above that. I have 6 kids, and I started a business, and it was really felt in my heart that I needed to do this. And so we had to get help. I'm not going to lie. I had to hire help.
Of course.
And here's the thing with women, we feel guilty. It's like, but I should be the one. And so what I did is I'm like, you know what? I'm going to hire help, and I'm going to have them do the dishes and do the laundry, because I don't need to do those things. Like I don't, but I do want to be with my kids. So I'll be the one taking the kids to the park. I'll be the one, doing this, and I'll work later at night. So, you can be flexible. And because I hired help, we were able to bring a woman from Bolivia here, and she ended up, because of our help, meeting the love of her life. She ended up getting married. I mean, it changed her life. So when you're asking for help, it's not just, the lesser form of doing something. You actually could not just be improving your life, you could be helping other people's lives as well. You could be changing other people's lives because you needed help. And I think that's so important just for women to hear, because we feel like we're lesser than when we are like, oh, I need help. But really, you could be giving support to a cleaner that really needed that money, that they can now support their family.
Yeah, you're basically like the CEO of the household, and there's certain tasks that require your skill set, which is parenting and spending time with your kids. You bring no value to your kids by doing the dishes and, cleaning and folding clothes. Someone else can do that. You just need to spend the time in the relationship building with them. Right. Yeah, absolutely. If ever I'm in that position, 100%. I'm having a full-time maid in living with us to take care of all of those things. So we can just spend time with the kids and work, basically.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, my kids still do their laundry, the older kids still do their dishes. It's mostly the younger kids who they can't, so I still making my older kids learn how to work. But it's, and even then there's always the weekend, like you'll still have opportunities. So
yeah. That's what my dad told us. He's like, I got 3 kids. He's like, one does the dishes, one mows the lawn, one works in the yard. He's like, I got you guys. Why would I hire people for it? We're all like over 6 foot tall, and you've met me, so they're like, yeah, you guys are able to work hard. You'll be fine. So Allie, I want to say a massive thank you, for taking the time to jump on the podcast. Where can people learn more about you? And what cool things are you working on right now that you'd like to share with everyone?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So you can find me on my YouTube channel. Number one is my biggest platform. And so that's PlantWise, PlantWhys, because I like to teach the why behind eating more plants. You can find me on Instagram, also PlantWise. And my brand new project that I'm really excited about is I just started a podcast, and I'm like thrilled. It's already at number 11 on like the podcast list. I'm like, what? How did that happen? That's so cool. But it's called Eat Meat Sparingly, and it is where I'm completely open about my faith. This is like my passion project of where I wanted to really teach members of my faith like the benefits of eating less meat. And so I talk about the word of wisdom, the health code that we follow. But anyone, even if you're not a member of my faith, could totally listen to it and learn so much. I'm doing a deep dive on this next episode all about caffeine and the healthiest sources of caffeine that's out there. A lot of times you guys just resort to coffee or tea, and there's like so much better caffeine for you that doesn't give you a crash, that doesn't give you jitters, that will give you longer lasting mental clarity and improve your mood. I mean, I'm going to go deep into that. So make sure, even if you don't practice the same faith tradition I do, you will still receive benefits in following the podcast over there too. That's called Eat Meat Sparingly.
Beautiful. Well, so for everyone, I'll put all the links down below. So for the podcast, for YouTube, and for Instagram. And then I'm sure from there they can find your website if they want to do coaching or join your community. So everything will be on there. And then the free gift as well for the Cliff Notes for the How Not to Die. So you guys have a lot of links to check out down below. Allie, massive thank you for taking the time to jump on the podcast. I'm happy we're able to make that happen.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's just so good to see you. It's so fun to connect on the cruise, and I'm excited to run into you in other conferences. You're doing awesome work, and thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, of course. And you too. Keep up the great work. And everyone listening, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.